everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Is the cheapest possible silver that you can buy the best silver to buy? That is a question which I've been asked countless times by people here on my channel and through the emails on Silver Forum. It's also a question which I've asked myself a number of times throughout my silver purchasing career, and I thought it would make a pretty good topic for this week's Ponderous Wednesday discussion. So I've got here two very distinct types of pretty cheap silver that you can pick up at the moment, and one, as you can see, is a box of silver shot. Now, I use this for my hand poured silver, but theoretically you can buy a large box of silver shot and use it as a kind of stacking investment. There's no doubt it's got some fractional kind of purposes to it. You know, there's thousands of individual tiny beads in here. By the way, have a little bit of fun. Guess the weight of this box. I'm not going to tip it too far in case it falls over, but the first person to guess the weight of this entire box of silver shot will be pinned down in the comment section, so go and have a fun guess. Now, you can go and just buy this silver shot at pretty decent prices. To be honest, it's probably going to be slightly cheaper than the cheaper silver coins that you can buy at the moment out there, depending on where you can buy it. Sometimes you can even get it at pretty low prices, and that's part of its problem. You know, silver shot is a really interesting beast because it's very cool to play with, it's very tactile, it's very pretty, and often you can get it very cheap. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's not very many people or businesses that will want to buy it off you at a decent price. I think it's just self-evident as to why. You know, there's literally probably, I don't know, 10,000 beads in this box or more. I don't even know. I mean, there's a lot of little individual beads of silver, and they all are 999 silver, you hope, and we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. But you know, they're all 999 silver, but there's no easy way of being able to test all of these. You can't just go and you know, you can't XRF every single one of these beads. You can't put every single one of the beads on a Sigma machine. Theoretically you could, but you'd be there an awful long time with this much, and this is only a small box. Imagine if you had kilos and kilos and kilos of the stuff like I have for my hand poured silver. So that's really the only way to actually kind of get an idea of how pure something is, and you know, look to sell it a little more easily, is to melt it down into a bar, and then you'll have a more accurate way of being able to test it. You know, assay officers do this all the time. Commercial bullion dealers will do this as well. I know that there's a company called Baird & Co in the UK who are probably the biggest UK refiner of precious metals, and I just one day, I mean, in preparations for you know, building up to becoming a silver pourer as a full-time business, I decided it would be prudent to research what would happen to all of the countless kilos of silver shot that I had in the event that I was not able to do it anymore, or it didn't work, or I needed to cash out for whatever reason. And really interestingly, now obviously it's going to vary from situation to situation, so this is what I was told when I spoke with Baird & Co. Essentially what would happen is they would be able to take as much silver shot as I had. They would charge a admin kind of melting fee, and they would then basically refine and melt all of the silver shot into big bars. They'd then assay them themselves, they'd test them, I guess, and they would then work out obviously the overall silver content, and then pay 92.5% of silver price at that time. So that's really interesting. You know, there's obviously the admin fee there, so you've got to have a pretty decent size of bulk to actually make it worthwhile. I think the admin fee was about £100, but there's probably VAT to put on top of that as well. So, you know, overall it's definitely interesting, and it's one thing that's really good, I suppose, about this business. You know, for me as a sort of silver pourer, and anyone out there, I guess, who's looking to become a silver pourer, you have a valuable asset in this silver shot. And you know, if you're a business that creates, I don't know, plastic mold formed toys or something, and you buy you know, let's call it £10,000 worth of plastic in raw material, plastic beads for melting or something, I don't know. You know, plastic isn't really worth very much, and certainly it'll be one of those things where when you look to sell it, you'll be very hard pressed to sell it if you can, and even if you could, you'd probably get a dirt cheap price for it from a competitor who wanted to buy their stock at a you know, hugely discounted price. Whereas at least with silver, you know, it's valuable. There is always going to be that inherent value to it, and you can to a certain extent play the you know, the market with this kind of thing. So if you are being able to purchase the silver shot at a really cheap price, you know, above spot price to start with, from sort of experience, you're probably looking at a very, very minimum of 10% over spot. More likely it's going to be 15% over spot, including kind of shipping, delivery, all of that jazz. So in theory, you can invest in silver shot like this, but you've got to consider the other side of the equation when you get to the other side, when you want to sell it. Now, the quality of the silver shot is a really important thing to factor in, and that's the last thing I'll talk about this before we move over to that pot of coins. In that, obviously, when you're buying the silver shot, you need to be quite, reliable on who you're buying it from and their sort of reputation, and that's what the European Mint is exemplary in that sense. The guarantees that they give, even if there was a situation where their supplier is messed up and there was something, I have no doubt that the European Mint would be more than accepting of any kind of mistakes, or it's probably very unlikely to happen. But the point is that it would be, I think, quite easy to rectify with someone like the European Mint. Whereas if you buy a silver shot from any old mug who's refined his own silver, yeah, they might be a completely honest kind of person, and you can take all of this junk of silver here, you can refine it down with various acids, and then you can create silver shot. It is possible. That's how silver shot is often made, from junk silver, from scrap silver, from silver ore. But it's a difficult process. It's one which you need to be very careful of if you're doing it, and then at the other end, when you're selling it, you need to have that kind of reputation behind you to really do it. So purchasing silver shot, yeah, you can definitely do it. It's possible. Whether it's practical as an investment tool, I would argue no. So let's move on to another sort of category of cheap silver, and that is basically scrap and junk silver. Now, I've got here a pot of mercury dimes, basically. No, the mercury dimes? They're silver dimes, basically. And don't know if they're called the mercury dimes or not. No, they're not the mercury dimes, because the mercuries have the different back on them. This has got the Eisenhower, I think, on it, I think. And anyway, point is, these are pretty much the only kind of junky coins I have in that sense. When I purchased, in fact, Mrs. Backyard Bullion and I purchased a very large bag of these 90% coins from the European Mint, we had a huge amount of fun going through them, sorting them out. In fact, we've still got a couple of kilos which we need to sort out at some point. So yeah, that's definitely one thing to do. When we purchased these, they were basically the same price of other silver coins in terms of the silver weight that you could buy, the cheapest silver coins you could buy, so it was a good option to buy. However, there are things to consider here. So I've got all of these coins. How do you sell them at the other end? That's the important thing. If you are looking to make a profit on these at some point, and you're wanting to cash in on the kind of price points that, silver's gone up since we purchased this, so we could arguably go and look to sell it. But again, it's like, who's going to want to buy all of this stuff quickly and easily? You get put in the same situation as before. If you're going to be looking to sell it to a dealer, they're going to probably pay you perhaps even less than the 92.5% for the silver coins here. It's going to be harder for them to refine this stuff and make it into sort of that pure silver. They have to then put it through that refining process to get it up to the 99.9% pure status again. So that's definitely something to factor in. If you're going to go down the kind of selling to collectors or selling to other stackers route, that's definitely possible. But again, you've got a big pile of coins here. These are not necessarily the most popular coins, and because of the potentially difficult sales route at the other end of the purchasing kind of spectrum, a lot of people will be shy of purchasing all of these as best they can. That said, silver is silver, and that is a really interesting premise. I hear that phrase an awful lot of times, and people will always say, well, look, you can't go wrong if you buy cheap silver, if you can find silver below spot price. Well, in my opinion, that's a bit of a flawed argument. It depends on what spot price is, because spot price changes drastically. Now, I'm filming this video a little bit ahead, but in the week that I'm filming this video, I've seen silver go from around $14.50 an ounce at the end of the previous week. It dipped all the way down to $13.70, $13.60 an ounce, and then it went all the way back up to $14.30 an ounce. So there's been huge swings in just 1 week. So you could buy silver at below spot price or close to spot price on any given day, but then a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, that silver price could be ridiculously higher. So my argument is, yes, cheap silver is always a good idea, but it's not necessarily the right idea in that particular moment. And the type of the silver that you buy, whether it's shot or whether it's junk silver, or scrap silver, or, you know, old junky bits of silver that people want to just get rid of, brooches, things like that, old jewellery. Yes, it's valuable, but always consider the other end of the spectrum. How are you going to get the cash that you're putting into this out? You know, because this represents a certain amount of money that's locked up in here. That yes, it's real, it's there, it's silver, and it can be definitely sold at some point. It's just difficult to do. So the last thing that I'll touch on before we finish today's video is, well, if the cheapest silver that you can buy is this, or like the Nui owls, what should you buy? My opinion is that you should probably stick more towards the 999 pure stuff, unless you've got a real hankering and passion to have, you know, lots and lots of fractional pieces of silver like these dimes, or if you are curious to try and start your own silver pouring, perhaps that's an interesting out at the other end of the spectrum for silver shot. That's definitely something to factor in. But and this is not advice, it's really important to remember that I'm just a guy who likes to talk about shiny things here on YouTube. I'm not giving financial advice, but my opinion is that if you are going to buy this cheap as chips silver, you know, a penny an ounce, or a couple of cents an ounce price difference to get this stuff, or to get pure 999 silver coins in the form of Nui owls. I do apologise, we were interrupted by the doorbell there. As I was saying, my personal opinion is if it's only a couple of pence or cents difference, my opinion is to go for the pure 999 silver modern bullion coins as opposed to old junk. However, having a diversified kind of stack, having different elements of small denomination silver coins, and perhaps silver shot as well, I don't know, it's possible. Personally, I would steer clear of silver shot actually as a kind of investment side of things, unless you really, really either know what you're doing, or you're going to start pouring your own silver, or you're quite happy to play those market swings and have that difficult out at the other end. So that's my thoughts on cheapest chips silver. Is it a good thing overall? Of course, cheap silver is good. Nobody's going to argue that. But do be careful. Do think about the outs at the other end, the exit strategies, and how you might cope with a large pot of silver. If you haven't guessed the weight of this box, then have a guess down in the comments section. I'll give you one last look. I'll pin the person who gets the right answer. I know exactly in grams how many grams are in here, so guess it in grams, please. I'm afraid I don't know all of these pounds and ounces in American language, so guess in grams and I'll pin whoever gets it close, or sorry, whoever gets it right first. That's it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure you hit the thumbs up button and share it on your social media. That would be very helpful for everything we do here on the channel. Otherwise, if you'd like to see future videos from us, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and the alarm bell if you want to get notifications. Otherwise, have a great week. Thank you for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.